Hey everybody, how we doing? So let's talk a little bit about what's going on. So our Wyckoff schematic still working perfectly. So you know, textbook-wise, it does have an error or two. I've said this, that's why it's hard to give it 100% confidence. But as we can see, you know, from since we've had it posted, you know, it came down. You know, you could have longed off here, you could have got your short off here, and now we're sort of getting probably this area of it. This, you know, the Wyckoff is to be used as a guideline, guys. You shouldn't take this chart and say, all right, it's going to bounce off 75.19, okay? That's not what this is for. This is for a guideline for the price action. Let's stick to utilizing our, you know, resistance and support levels that we have laid out on some of our other charts when looking at these areas, okay? And we'll get into discussing that in a minute. So, looking at this Wyckoff here, what is next if we were to stick with it? Well, it looks like what's next is, you know, possibly some type of a retrace up here. Let's see where our next support level is, or our next resistance level. We have resistance, we have micro resistance around 74.50, and we have another resistance around 75.50, 76.30. Okay, so looking at this, oh my god, why do I keep losing my chart lately? Okay, so looking at this, 75.50, somewhere around here, that would be looking like a retest of the wedge. Like one of our members pointed out, it's definitely possible. If that is to happen, a retest of the wedge, then it's very simple how you play that. You just, okay, let's see, price action comes up, it hits the wedge, you short at the retest of the wedge, stop loss above. Let's see, this is 75.68-ish area, and remember, trend line price matters. Okay, so if this goes up directly here, the price is different than if it slow grinds up over to here. Okay, just always remember that. And we want to set our stop loss basically above the resistance level. That would be about a 60-point stop loss. Really good risk reward there. Okay, so that's a possible play. In terms of other possibilities, like I said, we can work off the resistance levels. Look for like a bearish divergence or something of that nature when testing these resistance levels here. Okay, let's bring this down. You know, search for, and like I said, I posted this earlier too. Do we see how when the 30 when we bounce back above the 39 RSI, we typically move towards the top again, and that seems to be what's happening here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, just like we had the break of the 50, break of the 50, break of the 50, break of the 50 here. Okay, that's been working as well. So keep an eye, plot these RSI lines on your chart, and keep them in mind. Right now we're fighting against this little bearish order block here, you know, trying to break above, but so far we have 3 wicks and 3 rejections. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. If we go down to the 5-minute, let's see here. No, we're not getting any bearish divergence yet here on the 5. Everything looks okay, although we are getting the squeezer top. But you know, in terms of 5-minute chart, and we want to be careful when looking at that. Okay, so let's take now a glance at the bigger idea and what's to come over the next, you know, 24 hours to 2 days. You know, like we said, we've sort of been preparing for this wedge short. You know, it worked out well. Actually, just a quick word about this. I woke up around like 4:30 in the morning and tried to provide some assistance to the people that were online. Sometimes I'm my own worst enemy, so to say. I'm happy that the group still jumped in. I saw a majority of the people jumped in this short. Good job, great on you. But truth be told, I shouldn't be, and this is nothing against you guys. You guys didn't ask me to do this. I'm just sort of a hyper-obsessive personality, I suppose. But I really shouldn't be getting online at 4:30 in the morning and trying to read the chart with my eyes half closed, not knowing what happened with the previous price action within the past few hours and trying to make a call. Okay, so that wasn't smart of me, and I won't be doing that anymore. So while I did say the short, actually the first post I wrote was that I shorted, and then I eventually said that, you know, we found, if we did find some strength, it would be wise to close around buying or close in profit. So I'm not sure what people did in that specific situation. I know a lot of members did stick with the short, and good job by you guys. If I was awake and active, it was the easiest thing to ever spot in the world. I just, like I said, my eyes were pretty much closed looking at the screen. We can see the obvious bearish divergence here on the 15 after these multiple rejections. Okay, rejection, 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 rejection. We had 4 rejections off the same exact point and decreasing buy strength here. It was an obvious short. Glad that most of you guys got into it. Personally, I missed it because, like I said, I was sleeping, but you know, no big deal. I'm more concerned with, you know, you guys getting into the move than I am. I know that you know, for me personally, I never sweat missing a move. I know there's always another move coming, so it's no problem. There was moves. There was moves 6 months ago, or there was moves you know, years ago. There was moves the past 2 days. There was moves today. There'll be moves tomorrow. And there'll be moves in the next few days, in the next few weeks, months, years, whatever you want to say. Hopefully, don't have to run this group for years. Hopefully, you know, we're all rich by then and Bitcoin goes to 100,000 or something. But, you know, until then, there's always going to be moves. So it's no sweat off my back to personally miss a play. I'm just happy that you guys got into it. And I wanted to show you guys what to look for, you know, in terms of... I guess, you know, some of you guys probably saw this and whatnot, but, you know, if I'm not always around, it was an easy short. Just take a look at it. You see this 15-minute strong bear div here, okay? The RSI strength was greatly weakening, and then you had the break of the 50 again. It couldn't get much more clear than that. So like I said, I do apologize. I'm no longer going to be trying to guide people in the middle of the night. It is actually irresponsible on my part to try to do that. So I apologize for that, and I'm not going to do that anymore. Because it was, you know, I gave some mixed messages, and that's never my approach that I want to give. I always want to be confident in a play, and while I did wake up and while I did believe I was confident, that's why I posted the short, but then I went back to sleep and I couldn't really be okay sleeping without watching the price action in order to advise the group. You know, that's sort of just how I am. If I post something, I want to be able to sit there and watch it and make sure you guys are safe. So, yeah, long story short, won't be commenting anymore until I'm actually awake and active, because it's just not, you know, it's not fair to the group, and it's not healthy for me to be doing that either. I shouldn't be waking up in the middle of the night and trying to evaluate the chart. I already evaluate the chart 14 hours a day, so to be waking up in the middle of the night to do it, you know, it can be seen as dedication, whatever you want to call it, but for me, it's just not, I don't think it's a smart thing to do. Okay? Leave it at that. Moving towards the bigger time frame and what's going on in the next few days. Let's take a look. I can't believe I just keep losing this chart. Okay. So this is our Wyckoff schematic. It's been working well for multiple days now. We see where it's headed. Understand that the spring, okay? Let me pull up, let me see if I can. Okay. So here we're looking at the schematic, right? So there are a few problems with the schematic in terms of textbook. We're not going to really get into them, but it's been extremely accurate so far. So in terms of the price action, has been quite accurate. So I want to talk about how the spring level here, and understand that the spring is a not defined level yet. So I talked about this last time we were playing the Wyckoff, and it's very important. You shouldn't be looking to long until you know where the spring is. But I do believe we may have an idea of where the spring is this time specifically, and I'll tell you why. And I talked about this in the updates channel, and I do understand today's video is a tiny bit scatterbrained. I hope people are sticking with me. There's just a lot of stuff going on in terms of the chart and the many different ways to look at it, and obviously we want to capitalize as much as possible. So take a look at this, right? See how we bounce here on the 6th? I'm going to show you guys this. This is super interesting. This was something that was going on Twitter, and you know, like I said, I don't really care for what people on Twitter say, but every now and then I see something interesting, and you know, it's worth looking at. So, and also that guy Marius said it too, which is very interesting too. He said we'd bounce on the 6th. And, you know, Marius, that guy's wrong all the time, but he's an eccentric personality, so to say. You know, he doesn't typically, you look at his TA, it's not normal TA. So there's a lot of non-normal ideas that are showing Confluence here, okay? So let's take a look at this. Bounce on the 6th. Rejection, basically on the 6th. Bounce on the 6th. Rejection on the 6th. Bounce on the 6th. Is that what's going to happen? Okay. And we could see the downward resistance here. So if we were looking at this, we would expect the spring to be right around 70, 75. Or perhaps even a bit lower. Maybe it hits the long-term trend line. Remember this trend line coming from here? This blue one hits all these points perfectly. Okay, so maybe it hits there right around 7K, high 69s. So when we get closer to there, we'll talk about that. I just want to show you guys how some of these things are lining up to be quite interesting. Okay. Yeah, so that's possibly where the spring could be, right around 70, 75, or right around 7K. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. In terms of moving forward, like I said, there are the opportunities to keep following this Wyckoff and see if it continues to play. Obviously, I'll provide you guys with updates if I see anything. And remember that the Wyckoff is to be followed as a guideline, but not as a exact place where the price should be going. Okay, we can see that it has been fairly accurate, but you know, look at this. This one only hit here when the Wyckoff should have had it going up to here. So it's a guideline, not a specific price. Make sure we're utilizing the supports and resistance levels that we have labeled out on the chart in order to, you know, find our levels for longing, shorting, etc. I will post both the Wyckoff chart and this chart to the charts channel after this video is posted. If you have any questions, as always, I'll be in the chat. Feel free to DM me. Okay, I think that's good for today. Thank you very much, everybody, and see you in the group.